People waste years trying to be understood. They explain their choices, defend their mistakes, justify their dreams, and beg for approval from people who already decided how they want to see them. Every conversation becomes a courtroom. Every opinion becomes a trial. The strange part is that the more you explain yourself, the less power your words seem to carry. People don't always listen to understand. Sometimes they listen to judge, compare, or simply wait for their turn to speak. And while you're busy proving who you are, you're giving others permission to decide your value. There comes a moment when something shifts. You stop chasing validation. You stop writing long explanations for people who never intended to understand. You stop defending every decision, every change, every ambition. The noise around you gets louder at first, but inside, everything becomes quieter. Because the day you stop explaining yourself is often the day you finally start living for yourself. Most people believe they owe the world an explanation. They think every decision must be justified, every mistake must be defended, and every change must be approved by someone else before it becomes acceptable. From the moment they wake up, they are trapped in an invisible cycle of proving themselves. Why did you choose that career? Why did you leave that relationship? Why did you change your goals? Why do you think differently now? The questions never stop, and neither do the explanations. What starts as a simple conversation slowly becomes a habit, and that habit turns into a prison. The frightening part is that many people never realize they are living inside it. The truth is that not everyone who asks questions is looking for answers. Some people are searching for weaknesses. Some are collecting information they can later use against you. Others have already decided what they think about you long before you open your mouth. No explanation will change their minds, because understanding was never their goal. Judgment was. Yet people continue talking, continue defending, continue wasting energy trying to convince individuals who were never interested in being convinced. Think about how much of your life has been spent explaining things that should have spoken for themselves. You explain your boundaries to people who benefit from crossing them. You explain your ambitions to people who secretly hope you fail. You explain your growth to people who were comfortable with the old version of you. Every explanation becomes an invitation for debate. Suddenly your choices are no longer yours. They become public property, open for discussion, criticism, and approval. The world has a strange relationship with confidence. When someone constantly explains themselves, people sense uncertainty. It doesn't matter how intelligent the explanation sounds. The very act of repeatedly defending yourself can make others believe there is something to defend. The more desperately a person tries to prove their worth, the more others begin questioning it. Meanwhile, the individual who quietly moves forward without seeking permission creates a different reaction. People may not understand them, but they respect the certainty behind their actions. Many people are terrified of being misunderstood. They fear that if they don't explain themselves, others will create false stories about them. But here is the uncomfortable reality. People create stories anyway. No matter how carefully you choose your words, someone will misinterpret them. No matter how detailed your explanation, someone will twist it. No matter how honest you are, someone will doubt you. Trying to control every opinion people have about you is like trying to control the weather. The effort is endless, exhausting, and completely beyond your power. There is also a hidden cost to constant explanation. Every time you justify yourself, you place another person's opinion above your own judgment. You begin treating your decisions as if they require outside approval to become valid. Slowly, without noticing, your confidence starts depending on the reactions of others. Their agreement becomes your comfort. Their disagreement becomes your anxiety. Instead of leading your own life, you become a spokesperson defending it. The people who truly matter rarely demand endless explanations. They may ask questions because they care, but they do not require you to stand trial for every choice you make. They understand that human beings evolve. They understand that not every decision can be perfectly explained. They understand that some paths only make sense to the person walking them. The ones who constantly demand justification are often the same people who would never be satisfied regardless of what you said. A powerful shift happens when you realize that your life is not a public debate. Not every criticism deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every misunderstanding deserves correction. Sometimes the strongest answer is none at all. Sometimes the most powerful statement is continuing forward without stopping to explain why. The people who are determined to misunderstand you will keep doing it, and the people who genuinely value you will not need 1,000 reasons to respect your choices. There is a dangerous addiction that hides behind a smile, disguises itself as politeness, and quietly controls millions of lives. It is the need for approval. Most people never recognize it because it feels normal. They call it being respectful. They call it being considerate. They call it fitting in. But beneath all those comfortable labels is a simple fear. The fear of being disliked, rejected, or judged. That fear becomes a chain, and over time, people wear it so long they forget it is there. Watch how people change the moment they enter a room. Their opinions become softer, their words become safer, their personalities become smaller. Suddenly, they are no longer expressing what they truly think. They are calculating reactions. They are scanning faces for signs of acceptance. They are adjusting themselves to match expectations. Every decision becomes a performance designed to earn applause from an audience that may not even care about them. The strange thing about approval is that it never stays satisfied. The moment you receive it, you start worrying about losing it. One compliment creates the need for another. One person's acceptance is the fear of their rejection. What feels like validation quickly turns into dependency. Instead of building confidence from within, people begin borrowing confidence from others. And borrowed confidence is always temporary because it belongs to someone else. Many individuals spend years chasing approval from family, friends, co-workers, strangers on the internet, and people they barely know. They measure their worth through likes, praise, attention, and recognition. Every positive reaction feels like a reward. Every negative reaction feels like a punishment. Without realizing it, they hand control of their emotions to people who have done nothing to earn that power. The world teaches this behavior from an early age. Children are rewarded for fitting expectations. Students are praised for following certain paths. Adults are encouraged to seek acceptance from society before trusting their own instincts. Gradually, people stop asking themselves what they truly want. Instead, they ask a different question: what will everyone think? That question becomes the silent ruler of their lives. The cost of seeking approval is often invisible at first. It doesn't arrive with dramatic warnings. It appears in small compromises. You stay quiet when you should speak. You agree when you should disagree. You tolerate things you should reject. You abandon goals that others don't understand. Piece by piece, you trade authenticity for acceptance. The exchange seems harmless in the moment, but eventually you wake up and realize you have become a stranger to yourself. People often assume approval makes them stronger because it feels good. Praise creates comfort. Acceptance creates relief. But comfort and strength are not the same thing. True strength is the ability to stand alone when necessary. It is the ability to remain loyal to your principles even when nobody applauds them. A person who depends on approval becomes vulnerable because their confidence can be taken away by a single opinion. One criticism can shake them. One rejection can stop them. One disapproving face can make them question everything. The individuals who appear powerful are not always the loudest or most successful. Often, they are simply the people who no longer allow public opinion to dictate their identity. They understand that approval is unpredictable. Today's supporters can become tomorrow's critics. The crowd that cheers for you now may turn against you later. Building your self-worth on their reactions is like building a house on shifting sand. Not everyone will understand your choices. Not everyone will support your journey. Not everyone will agree with your vision. Some people will criticize you no matter what you do. Others will dislike you for reasons that have nothing to do with you. Chasing their approval is an endless race with no finish line. The harder you run, the more exhausted you become. The moment approval becomes a necessity rather than a bonus, weakness begins to grow. Your decisions become less about purpose and more about perception. Your voice becomes less honest and more calculated. Your life becomes less authentic and more performative. Instead of leading yourself, you start following the expectations of people who may never be satisfied, constantly sacrificing pieces of your identity in exchange for temporary acceptance. Most people are afraid of silence because silence reveals things they spend their lives trying to hide. It exposes insecurity. It exposes uncertainty. It exposes the desperate need to be noticed, understood, and accepted. That is why so many people fill every empty space with words. They explain too much, defend too much, argue too much, and react too quickly. They believe power comes from having the last word, but power has never belonged to the person who talks the most. Power belongs to the person who remains in control when everyone else is losing theirs. Silence has a strange effect on people. The moment you stop explaining yourself, others become uncomfortable. They expect a reaction. They expect a defense. They expect you to justify your choices and answer every accusation. When those expectations are met with silence, confusion begins to grow. Suddenly, The conversation they thought they controlled starts slipping through their fingers. The attention they wanted from you never arrives. The emotional response they were waiting for never appears. The argument they hoped to create dies before it can even begin. Many people mistake silence for weakness because they only understand visible strength. They believe confidence must always be loud. They think powerful people constantly prove themselves. They assume every challenge requires a response. But real strength often looks very different. Sometimes it is the ability to walk away from a pointless argument. Sometimes it is the discipline to ignore an insult. Sometimes it is the wisdom to recognize that not every battle deserves your energy. Look at how much of human conflict survives because people cannot stay silent. Someone says something offensive and an immediate reaction follows. One criticism becomes an argument. One disagreement becomes a war of words. Each person fights to protect their pride, and neither side gains anything except frustration. Silence interrupts this cycle. It removes the fuel from the fire. Without your participation, many conflicts lose the power they depend on. There is also something deeply unsettling about a person who remains calm while others expect them to break. Society has trained people to believe pressure should create panic. When someone refuses to react emotionally, it creates uncertainty. Their silence becomes unpredictable. Their composure becomes intimidating. Not because they are threatening anyone, but because they cannot be easily controlled. People often reveal more about themselves than they realize when faced with silence. A person who constantly seeks attention becomes louder. A manipulator becomes frustrated when their tactics stop working. Someone looking for a fight becomes irritated when there is nobody willing to fight back. In many situations, silence acts like a mirror. It reflects the intentions of others without requiring you to say a single word. This does not mean silence is passive. It is not surrender. It is not fear. Strategic silence is a decision. It is the ability to recognize when words have lost their value. There are moments when explaining yourself only invites more misunderstanding. There are moments when defending yourself only encourages more attacks. There are moments when responding only gives unnecessary importance to people who have not earned your attention. The strongest individuals understand that every reaction is an investment of energy. They know their time, focus, and emotional stability are valuable resources. Instead of spending those resources on every criticism or opinion, they choose carefully where their attention goes. While others waste hours arguing, proving, and defending, they continue moving forward. Their silence is not empty. It is occupied by purpose. The world is filled with noise. Endless opinions, endless judgments. Endless demands for explanations. Everyone wants access to your thoughts. Everyone believes they deserve a response. Everyone feels entitled to your attention. Silence becomes powerful because it reminds people that your energy is not public property. Not every comment deserves acknowledgement. Not every accusation deserves correction. Not every misunderstanding deserves clarification. The most dangerous thing about silence is that it forces people to face their own assumptions. When you stop explaining yourself, others are left alone with the stories they create. Some will misunderstand you. Some will judge you. Some will invent reasons for your behavior. But many would have done that even if you spent hours defending yourself. The difference is that silence prevents you from becoming trapped in their narrative. Instead of constantly reacting to every voice around you, you remain focused on your own direction, protecting your peace while others remain distracted by the sound of their own expectations. People love words because words are easy. They cost nothing. They create the illusion of effort without requiring any sacrifice. Anyone can create excuses. Anyone can explain why they failed, why they quit, why they deserve another chance, or why things will be different tomorrow. The world is full of speeches, declarations, and endless conversations about what people intend to do. Yet when you look closely, you discover a simple truth that many try to avoid. Words may attract attention, but actions reveal reality. Most people judge themselves by their intentions and judge others by their results. That is why so many individuals become trapped in a cycle of explanation. They believe that if they can just find the right words, people will understand them. They think a convincing story can replace consistent behavior. They hope a powerful excuse can erase repeated mistakes. But reality has never cared about intentions. Reality responds only to what is actually done. Think about how often people talk about change. They say they are going to become stronger, wealthier, wiser, healthier, or more disciplined. They describe detailed plans and ambitious goals. They speak with confidence and passion. For a moment, even they believe their own words. But days pass, weeks pass, months pass, and nothing changes. The promises remain exactly where they began in conversations. The gap between what they say and what they do grows larger with every passing day. The reason actions carry so much power is because they require commitment. Talking about courage is easy. Acting courageously when fear is present is difficult. Talking about discipline is easy. Remaining disciplined when motivation disappears is difficult. Talking about loyalty is easy. Staying loyal when circumstances become inconvenient is difficult. Words exist in a world of possibility. Actions exist in a world of proof. Many people become frustrated because they feel misunderstood. They spend enormous amounts of time explaining their character, their intentions, and their values. They want others to see them a certain way. They want recognition for who they believe they are. But people rarely trust descriptions as much as they trust evidence. You can tell someone you are honest, but your actions will eventually confirm or deny it. You can claim to be dependable, but your behavior will reveal the truth. You can describe yourself as strong, but strength becomes visible only when life creates pressure. This is why explanations often become unnecessary when actions are consistent. The person who repeatedly proves themselves through behavior does not need endless speeches about their value. Their choices speak long before their words ever do. While others are busy defending their reputation, they are building one. While others are explaining why success has not arrived yet, they are quietly creating it. There is something unsettling about a person whose actions and words perfectly align. Such individuals become difficult to manipulate because they do not rely on appearances. They are not interested in convincing people. They are interested in becoming the kind of person who no longer needs convincing. Their confidence comes from evidence, not opinion. They know what they have done, what they have survived, and what they are capable of achieving. Meanwhile, explanations can become a form of escape. They provide temporary comfort because they allow people to avoid responsibility. Instead of fixing a problem, they explain it. Instead of improving, they justify. Instead of acting, they discuss. Every explanation creates the feeling of progress without requiring actual progress. It is one of the most deceptive traps a person can fall into, because it sounds productive while producing nothing. The world eventually learns who people are through repetition, not through dramatic speeches, not through carefully crafted stories, and not through endless attempts to manage perception. It learns through patterns. If someone consistently works hard, that pattern becomes their reputation. If someone consistently keeps their word, that pattern becomes their identity. If someone consistently overcomes obstacles, that pattern becomes their story. People may doubt your words, they may question your motives, they may criticize your plans, they may misunderstand your intentions. But actions have a way of cutting through confusion. They create evidence that cannot be argued away. They leave results that cannot be erased by opinions. Long after explanations are forgotten, behavior remains visible, silently revealing truths that words could never fully capture. Most people spend their entire lives carrying invisible chains without ever realizing they are chained. They wake up each morning believing they are free, believing their choices belong to them, believing they are living according to their own desires. But if they look closely, they discover something unsettling. Their decisions are influenced by approval. Their confidence depends on validation. Their happiness rises and falls according to the opinions of other people. What appears to be freedom is often nothing more than a carefully decorated cage. From a young age, people are taught to seek acceptance. They learn that praise feels good and rejection feels painful. Slowly, they begin organizing their lives around those feelings. They choose words that will be approved. They pursue goals that will be admired. They avoid risks that might attract criticism. Every step becomes influenced by how others might react. The process is so gradual that most never question it. They simply assume this is how life works. The problem begins when validation transforms from something pleasant into something necessary. There is nothing wrong with appreciation. There is nothing wrong with recognition. The danger appears when a person can no longer function without it. At that point, their emotional stability no longer belongs to them. It belongs to the crowd. Their sense of worth becomes dependent on reactions they cannot control. Imagine living in a house where every light switch is outside the building. Every time you wanted light, you would need someone else's permission. Every time darkness appeared, you would have to wait for another person to solve it. This is exactly how many people live emotionally. Their confidence depends on compliments. Their motivation depends on encouragement. Their self-worth depends on acceptance. Without realizing it, they surrender control of their inner world to strangers, acquaintances, co-workers, friends, and critics. The crowd has always been unpredictable. One day it celebrates you. The next day it ignores you. Today it praises your choices. Tomorrow it questions them. Building your identity on public approval is like building a castle on sand. The foundation shifts constantly. No matter how much effort you invest, stability remains impossible because the source of your validation exists outside your control. Many people never pursue their real ambitions because they fear judgment. They remain trapped in careers they dislike because leaving might disappoint someone. They stay silent about their dreams because others might laugh. They continue living according to expectations that were never theirs because approval feels safer than authenticity. Every compromise seems small in isolation, but together they create a life that no longer belongs to the person living it. Freedom begins with a painful realization. Not everyone will understand you. Some people will disagree with your choices. Some will criticize your direction. Some will misinterpret your intentions. Others will reject you simply because you refuse to become who they expected you to be. This truth frightens many people because they have spent years believing acceptance is necessary for peace. Yet something remarkable happens when validation loses its authority over you. The constant pressure begins to disappear. You stop treating every opinion like a verdict. You stop viewing criticism as a threat. You stop adjusting your identity to fit every room you enter. For the first time, your decisions become guided by conviction rather than approval. The world often mistakes this transformation for arrogance. People become uncomfortable when someone no longer seeks permission. They become suspicious when someone refuses to justify every choice. They expect compliance because they are accustomed to seeing others chase acceptance. A person who no longer depends on validation disrupts that expectation. Their confidence cannot be easily manipulated because it is no longer borrowed from external sources. This does not mean becoming careless about others. It does not mean ignoring wisdom, advice, or genuine feedback. Freedom is not the rejection of every opinion. Freedom is the ability to hear opinions without becoming controlled by them. It is the ability to listen without surrendering your identity. It is the ability to respect perspectives without allowing them to define your value. The moment validation stops being a necessity, something powerful emerges. Fear begins losing its influence. Doubt begins losing its grip. The endless need to impress, convince, explain, and perform starts fading away. What remains is a person who understands that their worth was never hidden inside the approval of others, and that the prison door had been unlocked long before they finally chose to walk through it.